Hello everyone and welcome to two very exciting games from rounds 7 and 8 of this year's Qatar Masters. We have two games by American Grandmaster 64-year-old Gregory Kaidanov, obviously the best age to play chess, and we're going to show his game against Jorden Foreest, and then in round 8 his game against Magnus Carlsen. He faced Jorden with white and Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces. Now the first time I heard about Gregory Kaidanov was very long time ago in Josh Waitzkin's Grandmaster series, although I already mentioned this a couple of times on the channel. Josh Waitzkin was, I believe, only a part of the Grandmaster edition of Chess Master. That's like edition 10, and he has his academy there, and he annotates one of his own games, I believe from 1995 against Gregory Kaidanov, where he won. And if you guys can get your hands on that academy, like particularly the Josh Waitzkin Academy from the Chess Master Grandmaster Edition series, it will do wonders for your chess, because I know you have so many ways of learning chess nowadays, but the way Josh Waitzkin explains chess is just on a level I myself have not seen to this day. That being said, let's check out the game, and I just wanted to mention where was the first time that I heard of Gregory Kaidanov. He's also member of the American Chess Hall of Fame since 2013, I believe. And, well, obviously a very long time in chess and a very strong player. So let's check it out. Here he opens with pawn to d4. Sorry, my bad. Here he opens with pawn to d4. Yeah, this is a game against Jorden. We have knight to f6 by Jorden, pawn to c4, c6, and now knight to c3. We have pawn to d5, e3, and pawn to e6, going for the semi-Slav defense, the accelerated move order variation, knight f3, bishop to e7, and bishop to d3 now. And, well, there are a couple of ways you could handle this. For example, castles and knight b to d7 are top moves nowadays. Jorden goes for d captures and c4, sort of the main way to tackle this in the olden days, something that I believe Gregory would be more fond of, because it tries to take advantage of the fact that you just played with the bishop, and now black forces you to waste another tempo and then even another tempo. So okay, bishop captures, pawn to b5, bishop back to d3, and now pawn to b4, a very forcing variation, if you will, knight e4, and now knight b to d7, and there are a couple of moves that were played here, but knight b to d7 is a new move, so already as of move 9 we have a completely new game. We have knight captures on f6, knight captures on f6, and now pawn to e4. Gregory grabs the full center here, bishop to b7, and now he castles. We have castles by Jorden, and now pawn to e5, and now this already should make black a little bit uncomfortable, as you've opened up this diagonal, you've given away the e5 square. Like, I would not play this with black. I would be terrified of playing this with black, because I would know what I want to do here with white. So knight to d7, and now bishop to e4, stopping c5 as the bishop on b7 is undefended, and now Jorden needs to figure out a way on how to play this. Now the safe way to play this is something like knight to b6 to d5, or you could maybe even lounge forward with pawn to f5 right away, or you could start with rook to c8, but Jorden plays something different. He plays queen to b6, and here Gregory asks him a very unpleasant question. He plays bishop to g5. Now I've allowed the engine to crunch the numbers here, because I, of course, am always interested in the objective truth, aside from, you know, showcasing the interesting parts of the game. And the engine says, okay, queen back to d8. The queen does not belong on b6, but no grandmaster will admit that kind of that queen to b6 was a mistake, and you know, take back a move. And of course, Jorden will not do it as well. He plays bishop captures on g5, and he accepts the challenge. And now, of course, you know what you would play here. If it's a bullet game, if it's a blitz game, even if it's a classical game, you will play this, and so does Gregory. He plays bishop captures on h7, as all the known you know, tactic points are here. So king captures and knight captures on g5 with check. Now, of course, you cannot go back. If you go back with the king, queen h5, and that's it. You just get checkmated. Even if you leave some room for your king, doesn't matter. Just queen captures on f7 with check, king h8, and now rook 8 to d1. threatening rook d3 followed by rook to h3 checkmate. And if you stop rook to d3 by queen b5, just simply rook e3. And now the other rook is coming to checkmate the king. There's no move that even postpones checkmate. It's you're just getting checkmated here. So by going into this, Jorden already said, okay, my king is coming to g6 and now queen to g4. Now there are two ways of exploiting this, and if you've ever analyzed such also known as the Greek gift sacrifice, you know that queen to g4 is one way to do it, queen to d3 is the other way to do it. Sometimes pawn to f4 is move that has to be played because there are little differences in black's moves that you have to take into consideration. Now here both queen to d3 and queen to g4 are fine. I can just show you like queen to d3 check, f5, and now you go for knight captures on e6. And now okay, rook 8 to e8, you will gladly give up material because white already sacrificed material. Queen to g3 check, king f7, and now knight to g5 check. King e7 and now knight h7, going for queen to g5 check, which of course will prevent the king from escaping via the d8 square. So king to d8, you give back a little bit of material, but now e6, and here black will have to resign, as after rook captures on e6, now you play knight captures on f8, and after knight captures, queen captures on g7. Black's position is completely busted. He does have a knight and bishop for a rook, but the bishop is not even in the game. You will simply trade off a pair of rooks, and then it's a king and a queen and rook against the bare king on d8. Of course, very easy to handle, but okay, that's a lot of moves. So Gregory goes for queen to g4. It's also a well-known maneuver. Pawn to f5, and now queen to g3, taking away all of the important squares from the black king, and there's just not much you can do here. If you try king to h6, then just queen to h4 with check, and after you go here, queen to h7 check, you sacrifice the knight, f4 check, king g4, and now queen to h3 will be checkmate. So you can't try something like that. So after queen g3, you could try maybe escaping with the king right away. Doesn't work, but you could maybe try pawn to c5. This seems to be working. It guards the e6 pawn, and after d captures, you will play queen c6 just to put pressure on white's king, but still knight captures on e6 opens up a discovery from the queen, and after king f7, knight to d4 attacks the queen, e6 is coming with check, and you're winning back material. You've completely busted open the black king's defenses. That's it. So after queen g3, Jorden tries queen captures on d4, but now just knight to e4 with check, king to h7, and now queen to h4 check. Now you cannot go back, as okay, if you go back, knight to f6 check picks up the queen on d4 is undefended, so he goes forward, king to g6, and now queen to g5 check, king f7, and rook 8 to d1, connecting nicely with the queen and the knight on the d file. Queen captures on e5. Other moves don't really help. If you try to give back some material, it doesn't work, because after it captures and f captures, the knight is again hanging, and you just get checkmated wherever you go. Doesn't really matter. So after rook 8 to d1, queen captures on e5 was played by Jorden, but now just rook captures on d7 with check, king g8, and now to top it all off, rook captures on b7, as the knight here on e4 is, so to say, immortal. You cannot capture it with the pawn as the queen hangs, and if you capture with the queen, then checkmate will happen on g7. So queen captures on b2. It's it's one of the least tasty pawns I believe Jorden ever captured, but what are you going to do? And now knight to c5, introducing the final attacker into the game. We have rook to f7 blocking the checkmate on g7, but now just a rook captures on f7, king captures, and another rook comes into the attack. We have queen to e5, and now rook to d7 with check, king to g8, or you go here and then you get checkmated on e7, so king to g8, and now pawn to h4, getting rid of any and all back rank issues, so now you don't have to worry about it, and there's really nothing you can try here. Rook to e8 was played, but now queen to g6, and he was in this position on move 31 that Jorden Foreest resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. If you try queen to e1 check, you can, okay, throw in a few more checks, let's say queen e5 check, but now even king to h3 is fine, but okay, you can play g3, doesn't matter, and after some f4 moves, you will play g4, and even you can give one more check. There are simply no way to reach the white king to maybe go for some sort of a perpetual, and after you play some moves, because there really aren't any good ones, knight to e4, and once knight g5 lands, that's pretty much it. For example, a4, knight g5, and queen h7 will be checkmate. Of course, queen h7, queen to h8 will be checkmate, as the rook covers this. There's no way to even try anything here. So this is the game Gregory versus Jorden van Foreest from round 7 of this year's Qatar Masters, and now as Gregory won this game very nicely, he gets to play against Magnus Carlsen in round 8, and now we are going to check out this game. Let me just load it up here. So this is Magnus versus Gregory Kaidanov. Let's see how Gregory now tackles the highest rated player in the world with the black pieces. So Magnus opens with d4, Gregory goes for d5. We have bishop to f4, Magnus goes for the nowadays called the accelerated London system, as if the London can get even more accelerated. But okay, pawn to c5, pawn to e3, and knight to c6. Gregory tackling this in a sort of a traditional fashion. C3, and now knight to f6. We have knight to d2 by Magnus, and now you could probably develop the bishop and then close the structure, but Gregory decides to close the structure right away, and he will tackle the development of the light square bishop later on, which again is a sort of nowadays modern grandmasters will try this, and then they don't care if they have to trade the bishop for a knight, but it is sort of a less modern approach to the opening. Knight g to f3, c captures on d4, he trades once on d4, and now goes for knight h5. He wants to eliminate Magnus's bishop, bishop to e3, and now bishop to d6, taking care of the f4 square. So next you know that knight to f4 is coming. Magnus goes bishop to d3, and now knight to f4, forcing Magnus to give up the dark square bishop. The only other option, as the bishop and g2 are attacked, is to bring the bishop back to f1, which of course you don't do. So bishop captures, Gregory wins the bishop pair here, castles, and now castles as well. We have rook to e1, bishop to d7, and the position has been reached before, even in some top-tier games. For example, g3 was played in a game. Alexander Predke played it against, Sergei Karyakin played it against Alexander Predke, but he lost that game. And also, Vidit had this position against Levon Aronian. Vidit played knight to e5, and he won that game. But Magnus goes for knight to b3, and it is now, as of move 13, that we have a completely new game. And as you'll see, the knight will be quite useful on b3. So pawn to b6, of course, you don't want the knight to come to c5, so pawn to b6, we have queen to e2, and now pawn to g6, making the bishop on d3 not so useful a piece. We have pawn to a4 now, and pawn to f6. Gregory not afraid of Magnus, he says e5 is coming, but Magnus says not so fast, bishop to b5. And this is a very standard way of handling the pressure in the center. Now e5 would be a bit premature, because you simply eliminate the defender of e5, for example, bishop captures, and now you tackle the other defender of the e5 square, or the pawn on e5, and after the bishop moves, you will simply play d captures on e5, and even if the pawn gets pinned, it doesn't matter. Knight bd4 attacks the undefended bishop here, and once you defend the bishop, now you advance the pawn to, all the way to e6. It's a defended passed pawn. Of course, this is objectively now winning for white. So okay, after bishop to b5, Gregory says very nicely done, Magnus. He plays queen to c7, now puts some pressure on the h2 pawn, and pawn to a5. The knight on b3 nicely supports this advancement. We have rook 8 to e8. The e6 pawn is a little bit weak. It's a backwards pawn, so the rook definitely belongs on e8. And now pawn to g3. Not only kicking away the bishop, but also taking care of the sort of the potential weakness on h2 if the knight ever moves. So bishop back to h6, and now a captures, and pawn to c4. Very nicely done. D captures, we have queen captures on c4, now also putting pressure on this diagonal here, and queen to d6. And now, okay, you might have some ideas of trading off queens with queen to d5, but Magnus says not so fast. Rook to e6, goes after the undefended pawn on b6. Rook to b8, defending it, and now Magnus finds a beautiful way of continuing this sort of, early onslaught with knight to c5. And it's a very, very tricky move. Point is that after b captures, you will play d captures and attack the queen on d6, and the queen has to defend the knight here, as the knight here is attacked. You will have to move to c7 to defend the knight, and now you just capture. Bishop captures, and queen captures on e6, goes after the bishop on c6, and you will get something like this. For example, queen f7, rook captures the bishop here, and after rook captures on b2, you will play rook to c7, force a queen trade here, for example, captures, and you end this with Magnus being up a pawn, and it's a beautiful passed c pawn. So again, objectively, you should win this. So after knight c5, knight captures on d4. Gregory finds the correct continuation. Knight captures on d4, and now queen captures on c5. So now you cannot capture the bishop, as the queen here would hang. Rook to a7, putting pressure on the bishop on d7, and now how do you deal with this? It's a very tricky position. Point is that if you play bishop captures on b5, then the idea is queen captures on e6 check, and after the king moves, knight captures on b5. And you cannot capture the knight. If you capture the knight, of course, then you cannot prevent checkmate, queen e7. And you're getting checkmated. But even if you don't capture the knight, how are you stopping the queen from controlling the 7th rank and checkmating the black king? You might have an idea, okay, let's play rook b to e8. This kind of gets the job done, but no, here comes queen captures on e8. And after rook captures, queen captures, how are you defending checkmate? You have to block with the bishop, and now rook to c7. Trying to forcefully give or force feed the black queen the knight on b5, but if you capture, then rook captures on f8 will be checkmate. So you have to keep control of this diagonal, but now comes rook to f7, and there's no defense. You can block, or you can defend with the king, but simply trading off rooks will do. Rook captures on f8, queen captures, rook captures, king captures, and now you're up a full knight, of course, completely winning. So after rook to a7, Gregory plays rook b to d8 again, a very nice move, and also the strongest one. And now there are a couple of moves that Magnus could play, like queen captures on c5, or he could play rook to c7, but Magnus knows chess and he plays pawn to b4. And how to tackle this? Well, now seems like a good idea to trade off queens. Gregory plays queen captures on c4, bishop captures, and now Gregory plays rook f to e8. And this is sort of, it's hard to call this move a mistake, because maybe you can still hold it, but there was a better way to handle this, and that is to play pawn to b5. And once pawn to b5 is played, idea is that if bishop captures on e6 now, and of course this fork happens, you will simply skewer the knight, and now the rook on e1 is undefended, and after knight captures, rook captures with check, you get to this position, rook e4 attacks the pawn, and this is easily drawn. Or if you play after, for example, b5, you don't go after the pawn, you try to keep the tension, doesn't matter, just king h8, you unpin, and now if you don't want to see e5, you have to capture on e6, and it's basically the same variation. You will just capture here, and that's pretty much it. Not much here. Even the bishop can be activated now with bishop to d2. So this is a very important move. However, he played rook f to e8, defended the pawn, and now sort of is threatening this. But now Magnus plays pawn to b5, and this now makes it very problematic, because it also gives the c6 square to the white knight, and that's a problem. Either the knight remains on c6 forever, or you have to capture it and then give Magnus a pass pawn already on c6. So there's really no good way to handle this. e5 still not possible, as the king is on g8, so bishop to c8 was played, and again, if you play king to h8, it doesn't really matter. Knight to c6 goes after the rook, and if you move the rook, you lose the bishop, so you have to capture here, and giving white this pass pawn is just too much. For example, pawn e5, pawn to c7, rook c8, and bishop to a6. Game over. So after pawn to b5, bishop to c8 was played by Gregory, but now knight to c6, and already you can feel the power of this knight, and of course Magnus knows that none of this would be possible without that pawn to b4 pawn push. Rook to d6, and now rook to c7. We have bishop to d7, now rook to a1, preparing to double up rooks on the 7th rank. Of course, we all know what rooks on the 7th rank are called. They are called pigs, as they gobble up everything. Bishop to f8, and now rook a to a7. And now the pigs, or the hogs of war, are simply unstoppable. You have to play bishop captures on c6. B captures, Magnus now gets a beautiful passed c pawn already on c6. Rook to d1 check, king to g2, and now rook to c1. Trying to put the rook behind the passed pawn, but now rook to a4. Magnus plans on keeping the bishop here, sort of to be able to move the rook and advance the passed pawn, but now Gregory finds a very tricky pawn to b5 move. And okay, bishop captures, and now he throws in rook to c5. Now the bishop will not be able to pose in between the rook and the passed pawn. Still, bishop to c4 keeps control of this diagonal, and now bishop to d6, attacking Magnus's rook on c7, rook to b7. And now, king to h8. King to f8 also possible, but it doesn't matter. Objectively, Magnus is already winning here. Now it's only a matter of will he win this. Now, finally, the unpinning happens, the famous unpinning of the king on g8. But now bishop captures on e6. And, it took the king this long to unpin, but now bishop just captures. Point is that if you capture, of course, rook to a8 will be checkmate after you give up a few pieces. So that cannot be played. Rook to e7. Gregory offers a rook trade, but Magnus happily accepts. Captures. Rook to a8 with check, king to g7. And now, not rook to g8 check, although it looks very nice. Rook to a7 is better. Just putting pressure on the bishop. And the problem is, if you defend the bishop, c7 just wins, as the c8 square is defended by the light square bishop on e6. So after rook a7, Gregory decided to give up the bishop and maybe try to hold on, but that's easier said than done. Rook captures on e7 check, king f8 and rook to f7 check, and he was in this position on move 44 that Gregory Kaidanov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So the point is that if you go king to e8, okay, you don't want to go under the mask of the bishop, but if you go here, then simply a very nice rook trade, bishop d7 check, forces a rook trade, and you're up a full bishop. And the other thing you could try is, of course, go under the mask of the bishop, but now you will just play rook captures on f6 with check to keep your bishop defended. And after king g7, you will repeat rook f7 check, king to h8, and now just move the bishop, and you're up a full piece. Doesn't really matter. You will consolidate here with something like this, or even king f3, and you're up a full bishop and up a pawn, of course, completely winning. If anyone would like me to create a tutorial on how to win endgames where you are up a full piece, I can also do that. I mean, I believe that kind of a tutorial also has its worth. So yeah, very nicely done by Magnus, but at 64 years of age, very nicely done by Gregory Kaidanov as well, taking down Magnus's protege Jorden from Foreest in the previous game, and now holding his own against Magnus basically up until the very end. A move precise a couple of moves ago would have probably given him a draw, but of course, you have to find that kind of a move against Magnus every move, and then you will maybe get a draw, but if not, then you will lose. Or sometimes you win, like Karthikeyan defeated him 2 rounds ago. So yeah, once again, really hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry about 2 videos in 2 games in 1 video, but I thought it would be very nice, as I decided to show both of Kaidanov's games. So I hope you enjoyed that. I would like to thank your mom's smarter mate, Tucker Beckman, Eddie Indus, BulletChessThriller.com, and Chad Smith for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and also everything else that's happening in the chess world. Plus, the final round, of course, will be covered of this wonderful event. If you have any other games that you would like to see from the penultimate round of Qatar Masters, do use #suggestion and I will go over it. And remember, tomorrow we have a live stream with Alireza Firuja with the Improve app. Alireza will be holding a simultaneous exhibition against 20 of our improvers. He will be taking them on and try to, of course, defeat all of them. So if you are interested in that, tune in the live stream. It will start maybe 6:30 p.m. Central European time, or maybe 6. Basically, it will take. First, we will talk about what we are doing for like half an hour, and then Alireza will join us, and he will take on the full squad of the improvers and try to defeat all of them. And if you guys have some questions for Alireza, I will also I will try to annoy Alireza as much as possible, so he messes up, but chances are he will not. So yeah, once again, hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.